Hello, viewers of Wide Real News. Thank you for tuning into another deep dive into the most pressing political and security issues in Africa. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the latest news and analysis. Your support helps us bring you detailed, factual stories about what's shaping Africa and the world. Introduction to Sudan's conflict. Since April 2023, Sudan has been engulfed in a violent conflict between two powerful military factions, the Sudanese Armed Forces (SAF), led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF), commanded by General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemedti. What began as a struggle for control has escalated into a full-blown war, devastating millions of lives and threatening to split the country into fragmented regions controlled by rival factions. The situation mirrors Libya's descent into chaos, where warring groups divided the country into eastern and western administrations. Could Sudan follow this path, leading to an irreversible fracture of the nation? The humanitarian toll. The United Nations estimates that over 4 million people have been displaced due to the ongoing fighting. Many have fled to neighboring countries like Chad, South Sudan, and Egypt, overwhelming these nations' resources. The capital, Khartoum, once a bustling city, has become a battleground, with airstrikes, artillery fire, and street-to-street combat leaving its infrastructure in ruins. One refugee, Omar Ibrahim, now residing in South Sudan, shared her story. "I left everything behind, my house, my shop, my life. The fighting was so intense, we couldn't stay. But even here, survival is hard, there's no food, no medicine." In Darfur, the situation is even graver. Ethnic violence, exacerbated by the RSF's militia roots, has caused targeted killings, with entire villages razed. The international community has labeled some incidents as potential war crimes. Political implications and risk of fragmentation. The conflict has turned Sudan into a geopolitical flashpoint, with foreign powers like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Russia taking sides or attempting to mediate. Analysts warn that Sudan risks breaking apart into regions governed by different factions. Northern Sudan, potentially under SAF control, with ties to Egypt. Western Sudan, Darfur, a hotbed of RSF influence, with connections to Chad and Libya. Eastern Sudan, a wild card, as local tribes and militias navigate the power vacuum. Sudan's regional significance, bordering 7 countries and controlling the Nile River's flow, means its collapse could destabilize all of Northeast Africa. The role of protest and civil resistance. Amid the chaos, Sudanese civilians have demonstrated extraordinary resilience. Protest groups, many of whom were instrumental in overthrowing Omar al-Bashir in 2019, are once again organizing. In areas not dominated by heavy fighting, citizens have staged demonstrations calling for an immediate ceasefire and civilian governance. Protester Ahmed Mustafa from Port Sudan said, "We refuse to let generals decide our fate. Sudan is not their playground. We demand peace and democracy." However, peaceful protests are often met with violent crackdowns, further deepening the populace's suffering and despair. Comparing Sudan's conflict to Libya's civil war. Sudan's trajectory bears stark similarities to Libya's post-2011 fragmentation. Multiple power centers, competing military and tribal factions vying for control. Foreign interference, nations supporting different sides to secure strategic interests. Humanitarian disaster, widespread displacement, with little international coordination to address the crisis. The key difference lies in Sudan's size and population, which make its potential collapse even more catastrophic. International response and challenges. Efforts to mediate the conflict have largely failed. Ceasefire agreements, brokered by regional organizations and Western powers, have been repeatedly violated. Meanwhile, the African Union and IGAD, Intergovernmental Authority on Development, face criticism for their lack of enforcement mechanisms. The UN Security Council remains divided, with Russia and China opposing interventions that would undermine their influence in the region. As a result, humanitarian aid and peacekeeping efforts are insufficient to match the scale of the crisis. What's next for Sudan? As the conflict drags on, the likelihood of a united Sudan diminishes. However, history shows that even in dire circumstances, nations can rebuild. Sudanese activists, diaspora groups, and independent media are striving to keep hope alive. The question is whether international actors will step up to prevent Sudan's complete collapse or merely watch from the sidelines. Call to action. That's it for today's analysis. What are your thoughts on the Sudan conflict? Could the country break apart, or is there still hope for peace? Share your views in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Wide Real News for more in-depth coverage of Africa's political and security issues. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.